another Wizards Unite video, and today we're going to go over each of all these stats costs and just try to figure out which one is worth the most per read books. And I'm gonna split these into 3 videos, one for each profession. So we're gonna start with Magzioologist in this video, my profession, my main. So anyways, let's get into this then. So I calculated every single stat that needs read books and how much of an increase they get per read book, so we know which nodes to prioritize first that are, I guess, more cost effective. We're basically looking at the cost effectiveness of each stat. So let's first look at the offensive stats in Magzioologist with this graph over here. So not graph, spreadsheet. So going over power, Magzioologist actually has a decent amount of power nodes that they need to use with read books. So going over them, the most, I guess, the most worth it ones are the following ones: the Romanian Soderin. Bear with me, there's a bunch of these that I cannot pronounce. So all 3 of these, or actually not all 3, all 2 of these are pretty much worth it. The first one it costs 2 books for 2 power, so that's basically 1 power per book. That's the most cost-effective one in the Magzioologist tree. And then the second one is 2 power for 4 books. It's basically the same amount of power, double the amount of books, but you know, it's 0.5 power per book, so it's not that terrible as well. It looks pretty bad on paper when you just look at it, but when you compare it to like the later power nodes, it's pretty expensive, or the later ones are pretty expensive, and this one, you know, isn't too bad. Moving on, Alberta Toothhill is 0.66 per book, so it's, you know, 2 power for 3 books, so it's around the same cost effectiveness as the Romanian Surgeon. And then more size method is 2 power for 4 books, same as the second Romanian node. And then moving on to the later ones, Howling Wolves and Necessary Force, all of these are really expensive, but if you are going to max out your power, like most, you know, Magzioologists should, you should max out your power, prioritize Necessary Force before Howling Wolves, just because it's more cost effective. For 17 books, you get 3 power for both of the Necessary Force nodes, and that's like a 0.17, 0.18 power per book, in comparison to Howling Wolves, which the first node is 2 power for 14 books, 0.14 per book. Even though the second one's really good, relatively better. It's 3 power per 14 books, which is, you know, 0.21 per book. It is locked behind the first one, right? So maybe you want to prioritize Necessary Force before going for Howling Wolves for power. Moving on to proficiency power. So proficiency power is probably the second stat you want to max out for Magzioologists in terms of your offensive kit, right? So looking at these skills, Alchemy and a Teapot, these have the best cost-effective proficiency power nodes. So the first one is 8% proficiency power for 1 book, and that's, you know, 8 per book, and the next one is 10 for 1 book, so that's 10 books. These 2 are incredibly worth it. You know, obviously it only costs 1 book, so you have to pick these up. But moving on to the later 2 creatures, Great and Small, and Rolf Scamander. These 2 are these are extremely expensive, especially if you want to max them out. And I'm currently in the process of trying to max them out. I've done all of them except for the last Rolf Scamander. I'm like 5 read books short, so yeah, it's gonna take me a while there. So for the first one, two creatures, Great and Small, like it's quite obvious that between these two, just go for the first one. Go for 2 creatures, Great and Small, before Rolf Scamander. Rolf Scamander is really extremely cost inefficient, I guess is that the word? But yeah, it's really inefficient in terms of the spell books you're gonna spend here. But proficiency power is always a good one to max out, so aim to maxing this one out, but maybe you could, you know, just work on some other stuff before working on some other more cost-efficient stats than this one, the Rolf Scamander. All right, moving on. Accuracy, there's only one. Dockside, it's 10 accuracy per 6 books. Per book, it's 1.66. Like, if you're playing with an aura, just ignore this one. If you're playing solo, then pick this one up. It's not terrible in terms of its cost effectiveness, but you know, against Earthlings it will help a lot. Moving on to Precision. Precision is something you want to pick up after you're done with prof power, especially if you're in a group. So for Precision, it's just basically one node as well that costs red books. So how to stun a giant, it's 2 precision per 3 books, so that's 0.66 there. 3 per 7, and then 4 per 7. So the first one is the best one, third, the middle one kind of sucks, but you know, you have to go through all of them anyways. And then moving on, crit power. Crit power, you have 3 actually different nodes that you need to spend red books on. So the first one, Nowhere to Hide. This one is the best for all the crit power nodes. So this one only costs 2 red books for 4% crit power, so that you're getting 2 per book. And then the second one is 5 crit power for 4 books, so it's 1.25 per book. And then the other 2 are pretty trash, but in comparison, Breath of Dragons is slightly better. But you know, it really depends. Like, I would not have this one. I wouldn't have crit power as a priority. I would take Nowhere to Hide. Just because it's incredibly, you know, cheap. I maybe would take it before the last Rolf Scamander one, even though I'm going for a Rolf Scamander since I just saved up so much before that. But you know, these 2 are pretty cheap, so you could pick up. Moving on to Defense Breach over here. Defense Breach, there's only 1, so you'll just pick it up. Like, if you're playing with an aura, again, totally useless skill. If you're playing by yourself, you probably do want to pick this up, even though it's really, really expensive. Here are the numbers, so really depend on you. So, moving on to the defensive stats. Magzioologist has a lot of stamina nodes, so the order you want to pick these up might not be what you think. So let's go over Magzioologist's stamina. So the best node to pick up here, like just, you know, straight off the bat, is Fire Crabs. That for 1 book you're getting 10 stamina. And then after that would be Camp of Friends. The first one gives you 9 stamina per 1 book. The second one gives you 11 per 1 book. So these are really cost efficient ones. The next one you want to pick up would be Pain to Train, which is that's 12 stamina per 2 books. So it's 6 stamina per book. And then moving down, Sky Seafloor, that is a tongue twister. That's the one you want to pick up afterwards. It's 12 stamina per 3 books, 4 per book, and then you, after that, the other ones are getting a bit more expensive. But then again, live Chimera handling, that's not terrible. 13 stamina per 4 books, 3.25 per book, and then afterwards, before you pick up the second Sky Seafloor, you probably want to pick up Reem over there, Reem, I don't even know how to pronounce that. So that's 14 stamina per 5 books, 2.8 stamina per books, and then pick up the second Sky Seafloor. And then everything else is just really, really expensive. So I would not pick up any of these at all. Pet Manticore, Survival Training, or Magical Handling until like the really, really, very, very end. Or like if you're really, really just play solo and just need defense and don't want to spend health potions. So moving on to defense. Defense, there's literally only 1. Pick this one up. Defense is really good to have. Wilderness Wards, 7 defense per 6 books, 1.17 per book, and then the second node, 9 defense per 12 books, that's 0.75 per book. And not really cost efficient, but defense, it's something good to have, right? It's always good to have. You probably would even want to pick up defense before a lot of these offensive skills, especially if you play with a professor and you have Forum Quorum and a bird in hand. That could get you 100% defense. Or even if you don't have them, you pick up spiders. That will give you 100% defense against spiders only. The other one gives you 100% defense against everything, but you know, some people want to go spiders, so whatever. And moving on, Protego, this one you literally only have 1. This is only really useful if you're playing solo. This is kind of expensive. Shield Charmer, that's 6 books for 7 Protego power. That's 1.17 per book. Not terribly, not a terrible cost, but then again, if you're playing with a Professor or an Aura, honestly, you really don't need this. If you have like half decent defense, you don't need this at all. Moving on to Deficiency Defense, this is probably the last node in this whole thing that I would pick up. Yeah, you know what? I take that back. If you're purely playing solo, I'd take this over like the last few trash stamina nodes. Deficiency Defense, it kind of helps a bit against, you know, the werewolves, pixies, right? Pixies not so much. They don't do that much damage. Well, no, they do a decent amount of damage, but you know, they're not as annoying as werewolves. So you could pick this one up if you're playing solo before you pick up the last few stamina nodes. That's what, 7 or 13 deficiency defense for 14 books. That's 0.93 deficiency defense per book. So yeah, anyways, that's it for this one. Going over every single Magzioologist node and just seeing how much per book they actually bring, and are they actually, you know, which ones are worth getting first. So anyways, again, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you guys are going for next in your skill tree for Magzioologist. And yeah, like if you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel, and I will see you guys in the next one.